In this week's story, the protagonist of our tale does some rather wicked things in order to get his money. As they say in the ancient Republic of Rome, canis canon edit. It's a dog-eat-dog world. Matthew's body shivered as the early morning sun spilled onto the village. Such was the consequence of a night spent hiding in a bush down by the river. His motive, like many before him, was money, an irresistible sum for a frustrated office lackey. In 3 weeks, he was to meet the client via a 2-hour boat trip ride to a small southern island. There, he'd be paid handsomely, and a microlight would whisk him away to the other side of the world, where he would spend the rest of his days drenched in sun, sand, and all be endless companionship. Money goodbye. In the meantime, he had to lay low, at least until the frantic searchers had subsided. And something else had taken the village's attention. Apple Day was an annual tradition that saw the locals glugging fresh cider, pigging out on hog roast, and devouring fire-dipped marshmallows. It was the perfect night to slip away unnoticed. Every village had one, a house steeped in grim rumors. As children, they'd often rattle the towering gates and pelt the windows with stones, safe in the knowledge the old lady who inhabited the tall, thin building was sightless and could therefore never identify the culprit. Whispers painted her as a witch, but he had no time for such superstitions. He had chosen this place as the ideal hideout for 2 reasons. Her blindness guaranteed his anonymity, and her lack of visitors ensured his privacy. His trembling legs quickened, and he charged up to the jagged mound.
His stone-throwing days weren't his last visit to this place.
In fact, he'd been there only last week.
To complete his plan, he needed to convince Miss Crafton to accept a free guide dog, and today was the day her fluffy new gift arrived.
He trudged through the dark moss and the skeletal weeds towards the looming front door and gave a timid knock.
He smoothed down his wispy hair. Even though she was blind, he wanted to appear presentable and not like someone who had spent the night quivering by a riverside bush.
Then he heard the shuffle of the feet. It was the same shuffle he heard the previous week. It was followed by the chinking and clanging of bolts and chains. Finally, the door creaked open.
She was at a push 4 feet and 10 inches. She had pinned back gray hair, a brown cotton dress, and glazed sky blue eyes. Hello, Ms. Crafton. I'm back to deliver your St. Bernard dog, as discussed last week.
Oh, joy, she enthused. I can't wait to meet him. An awkward silence followed. Well, Miss Crafton, he ran to the back of your garden as soon as I let him out the van. It seems he's already making himself at home. Matthew had lied. Oh, how marvelous. I'll go back and say hello, shall I? Before he could say anything else, she turned and closed the door, and the familiar The rattle of locks followed.
The package lay where he had left it the week before, in the rose bush round the back of the house. He ripped open the brown paper, revealing the St. Bernard dog costume he had purchased from the fancy dress shop.
He stripped down naked and climbed into the dog suit. He heard Miss Crofton calling for a new dog.
Here, boy. Come along.
He dropped to all fours and plodded to the back door to greet her.
Oh,
There you are, she squealed in delight, patting his furry head. She felt for the door and pushed it wide open for her new pet to enter, and he wriggled inside.
This wasn't how he had pictured his life to go, from a reasonably happy childhood to a disgruntled office worker to a murderer posing as a guide dog for a blind woman. The next stage of his life would be better. He just had to get through the next 3 weeks.
She bolted the back door and shut it and locked it with a big iron key that hung from a chain around her scrawny neck.
From the checkerboard flooring to the unsettling green cupboards, the kitchen looked like it hadn't been decorated since the 1950s. She led him to his food and water bowls.
He was hungry, but factory floor meaty byproducts soon curbed his appetite. For the boy, it was not.
With faded floral wallpaper, a thick brown carpet, and a grandfather clock that couldn't tell the time, the living room, just like the kitchen, was a dusty time capsule to a bygone era. Talking of time, the day seemed to pass at an unnatural speed, and before Matthew knew it, night had crept in.
Next morning, Matthew lay in the front room, his belly grumbling in disbelief at what he was having to digest. Miss Crafton perched in her armchair opposite, smiling vacantly into thin air.
Her radio was tuned to New Orleans ragtime classics, which, much to Matthew's relief, was interrupted by a breaking news story.
Body of the missing millionaire, Martin MacDonald, has been found in the River Marne. Police are treating the case as a murder.
Oh, dear me. There are some wicked people in this world.
Crafton commented as she tapped the long fingernails on her bony knee. Come on, boy. It's time for your daily frolic in the garden, she suddenly announced with a clap. Once outside, he drank in the sweet, damp air like it was about to run out. Only 2 weeks and 6 more days to go. He huffed, his voice sounding croaky from the lack of talking. That's when he noticed it. A police car parked outside the front gates. He immediately dived behind the rose bush where his old clothes were. She's just a little elderly woman. She wouldn't know anything about that, the younger officer remarked. We've been sent to every house in the village and no one's seen a thing, the older officer observed. There's no need to bother her just yet. Besides, it gives me the creeps around here. As soon as the vehicle slid down the hill, Matthew raced to the back door, where Miss Crafton had been awaiting his return. Oh, you're keen to come back in, boy, she uttered with a titter. Later that afternoon, they were in the front room again with the radio on. Police have released the name of the man they wish to interview regarding the murder of millionaire Martin MacDonald. Anyone with information on the whereabouts of Matthew Shepard is warned not to approach him and should contact authorities straight away.
Oh, dear me, doggy. There are some wicked people out there.
She repeated her earlier remark.
I'm going to have to think of a name for you soon, doggy.
Having to embrace a dog's name was the least of Matthew's worries.
The police had joined the dots faster than he had fathomed. They were now officially on his trail. There was no other option. He simply would have to leave the house that night. Where he was going, he wasn't sure, but his decision to stay in the village had been a big mistake. He reached around to undo the zip, but before he had a chance located, a boisterous barrage of bangs thundered down on the front door. In an instant, Miss Crafton was at the bottom of the stairs, unlocking the mass of chain and bolts. Matthew peeped behind the living room door. It was the same police officers he had spotted sniffing around outside the gates. With the back door locked and the key hung around Miss Crafton's neck, his only hope was to crawl into the hallway and dart upstairs. From there, he might just be able to slip out of a bedroom window before they began searching the entire house. Matthew had yet to venture upstairs in the old, crooked house. It was dark, a lot colder than the rest of the house. He poured open the first door at the top of the hallway. Inside lay a grubby mattress and a mirror. He attempted to shed his costume, but this time he couldn't bend his arm around to reach the zip. Perhaps he just needed to take a moment to breathe and take in his surroundings. It was a bad idea. Sketches of red pentagrams took up nearly every bit of space. There were hundreds of them. Bloody hell, he said, or so he wanted to say, but to his horror, it came out as a bark. He caught sight of his reflection in the mirror, and suddenly it became apparent why he couldn't bend his arms back, as to why he couldn't find the zip, and as to why his voice came out as a bark. Just then, the younger policeman stumbled into the room, gasping at the strange choice in decor. Bloody hell, he whispered, voicing words Matthew longed to say. The large Saint Bernard launched at the officer, knocking him off his feet. It's me, Matthew, Shepherd. I'm the killer. She's turned me into a dog. Help me, please. Arrest me. Don't leave me here. Matthew tried with all his might to alert the policeman of his predicament. But it was no use, as once again his words came out as barks and whines. The officer quickly stood and bolted down the stairs, with Matthew snapping at his heels. I think we're all done,
he said to his partner. The pair left in a hurry, and Matthew barked and howled from the stairs.
Dear, oh dear. You're making a commotion tonight. Now go to bed before I lose my temper. And trust me, you don't want to see me lose my temper,
she cautioned with an unnerving tranquility. He promptly obeyed instructions and succumbed to his dog bed. Next morning, he lay by the fireplace as New Orleans ragtime classics played on the radio. Miss Crafton sat in an armchair, her glazed sky blue eyes fixed directly on him. Surrendering to the fact that this was his life from now on, Matthew yawned and rested his head on his pulse.
I think I've finally thought of a name for you.
She decided with a big, toothy smile. I'm going to call you Matthew.